for anyone who doesn't know me yet. So my name is Youri. I'm co-founder and CEO at CodeGrade. And today I'm excited to show you our latest feature, which is quizzes. Before we will get started with sort of a couple of slides why we developed this and show the feature and then how you can set it up in your own courses, I wanted to start with some questions to you. So let me share my other screen. So to make this interactive as well, we have a Menti. So you can go to menti.com and enter the code. And then we have a couple of questions just to get an overview of sort of what kind of courses you do with CodeGrade or without. So I'll give everyone like 30 seconds to join this, and then we'll go to sort of the first question. And then once you enter this, feel free to already sort of fill it in. And it will give us sort of an overview of what everyone is doing. I see a lot of different people from different places in the world, so that will be interesting to see what happens. Right. Let's give you guys 20 more seconds, and then we can go to the first. All right, so let's hope some people have filled it in. So the first question is, how many assessments do you have in your course? And this could be anything from like just a moment that students do something. So it could be an assignment, could be a quiz, could be a small question, could be, I guess, a final exam is even an assessment. So let's see what we have. We have a lot of people that fill in 5 to 10. Also some people less than 5 and even less, more than 10. I guess that's interesting. It's also, of course, depends a lot on what kind of course you teach. If it's like a more difficult course, I presume you probably have less assessments that are bigger in general. But I think this is a good start. But 5 to 10 is about what we expected. So let's go to the next question. Which is formative assessments, summative assessments, or both. And very happy to see that most people do both. Some people just do summative and some people just do formative, but it does seem that we have a lot of combinations. So I presume sort of weekly assignments or something like that, and then probably some kind of final exam at the end. But it's good to see people do both. And then, do you use non-coding questions outside of CodeGrade? This is, of course, partly why we developed this feature, and a majority does use non-coding questions like MCQs, which also makes sense, especially if there's like some theory in your course, which typically there is. Finally, let's have a look. Primary goal with assessments, 12 responses so far. Most people said feedback. Which is good. Student learning, student practice, knowledge measurement, so more summative, gauge the learning progress. So I guess that's also sort of in between summative and formative. And then also I see quite some just developing course grades, grading, grades, grade. I guess those are all the same. So again, here we see sort of a difference between summative and formative. But I'm glad to see some student learning, feedback, learning. Those are the biggest, so I'm glad to see that. But of course, the grading part is also important. You want to actually measure that students learned something at your course. Great. So I think this is a good start. And then let's get back to the actual slides. So let me start. Now that everybody is hopefully awake. Quickly, an outline for today. Just want to explain a little bit about sort of why we developed the quizzes feature and sort of how this can make your coding course more interactive. A couple of applications of this feature, how you can streamline your existing CodeGrade assignments with quizzes, and then basically the most part of this webinar today will be like a demo of the student view, the authoring view, and then actually setting up a couple of quizzes together. And then finally, we'll talk a bit about the release of this feature, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A as well. If you have any questions in the meantime, like there's about 25 people in the call, so feel free to just put it in the chat, and we can make this bit more interactive as well. So if you have any questions in the meantime, just pop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them during the webinar. Quickly, sort of about why we developed this feature. Basically, with CodeGrade, we want to make sure educators, so you, can teach programming through sort of an engaging and effective student-centered learning environment. The reason for that is that that typically leads to sort of improved learning outcomes, but also sort of enhances the overall educational experience for educators and learners. A lot of people use CodeGrade for this specific thing because it allows them to give assessments to students that are then automatically graded, so people get actually, students get feedback through that. And one way to sort of further increase this is to incorporate more instances of formative assessment within your course. And to do that, we're introducing this new quiz feature, so we can sort of place a stronger emphasis on cultivating programming skills rather than just evaluating their achievement levels, and also allow you to sort of help students reinforce their understanding and mastery. With quizzes, basically what you can start to do within your CodeGrade assignments is combine multiple choice questions with short coding questions, so sort of your learners can learn iteratively, and these are great sort of at the end of sort of a chapter or learning objective. You can give them some questions to further reinforce their knowledge and understanding, and then they can go on to the next or do maybe a bigger sort of programming assignment that's a bit more comprehensive and maybe more summative. There's a ton of applications for these coding quizzes. A lot are sort of focused on the formative side, but you can definitely also use this summatively as sort of more of an exam setting. But what I basically was talking about before is like introducing a new concept, which we'll see some examples of in a second, but also walking students through more like step-by-step tutorials or giving them like a debugging assignment. So you can give them some starter code that doesn't work and they have to fix it. And then combining theory and practice. So give them a multiple choice question about a subject, then give them a coding question to further reinforce that and use that in practice. And sort of let them understand the concepts that way. And then finally, you can of course do like full exams in this as well, using the quizzes feature. Finally, what we've seen teachers do over the years is they create tens of coding assignments within CodeGrade. That are basically every assignment is like a separate question. And then you get just a ton of different assignments and it becomes a bit messy. So what you can do with quizzes is you can consolidate this into one assignment. So we did see a couple of people that said greater than 10 in that in those questions at the start. These people might benefit from streamlining their assignments into sort of maybe a weekly quiz or something like that, or a weekly quiz and a weekly project. And that way sort of break down the learning material into smaller, more manageable chunks. So that was really quickly sort of why we've developed this feature and what you can do with it. But now let's actually see it in action. So let me start sharing my other screen. So I have a Canvas course open here. Of course, this works in any learning management system. And also, of course, without a learning management system, so standalone. And let me actually go into the student view and open up this Java quiz. So what you can see here is that CodeGrade opens up here within Canvas in this case, and everything within this box is CodeGrade. And we also use the simplified submission mode with which we released recently, which basically skips that first part where students have to like select if they want to upload a new submission, or you open up the editor and it launches them directly into the editor. So this feature works really well together with these quizzes where let's say they have a reading part before this, they read something, then they press the next button, they get into this quiz, they answer the questions, in this case just one, and then they go to the next section within their course. So how this looks like for the student is, in this case, there's just one coding question. We get the question statement, you can collapse this, and it's basically finish the program below and output hello world. So I can do that. Hello world. And then finally, you have the run and hand in buttons. If I press this run button, you will actually see that in this case, because there's just one assignment, on the right side, this is still the same as for any other code grade assignments. All your automatic tests will appear here, but also the automatic test related to this question will. So what you can see here for this particular question, we first compile it, and then we actually check if the output is correct with an IO test. If I make an error in here, a syntax error, and I rerun it, the compilation should fail. And we get an error that we expect a semicolon. So we can add that here. As you can see, this fully integrates with sort of the editor workflow. And if you may have noticed, it sort of creates a special file. This is sort of what's happening in the background. But you could combine this with sort of all of the other stuff you do normally in assignments. But we'll see that in a second once we look at sort of the authoring interface. You're sort of ready with this, you can simply press the hand in button, create your submission, and then you're done. In this case, it will grade it one more time. Result will be there, and the result will be sent back to Canvas. So this is a simple example with just one coding question. So let's actually go to a more difficult one, where here we have assignment that does lists. And here we can actually see some multiple choice questions. So you can see that every question is on a separate page to give students sort of the maximum amount of space, especially for these coding questions. That's quite nice. And you can also resize everything here. So for the MCQ, you can just fill them in. So what is a list? It's a data structure. Then which following is true? That would be this one, and then this one. And then I can do the coding questions again. I start with some starter codes here, and I can fill this in. So this. So that would be something like this. And then I can go to the next one. And then here I get another question. And again, I just have to fill in a function here. I'll type this one, just copy paste it in. And then at any point I can run this and I will get the feedback. It will run the autograder and I will get feedback. Important thing to note is, for instance, for the MCQ here, this is sort of a fully formative assignment, so we'll just give the answer straight away to the student. This is something you can configure within your auto test. So where you configure the quizzes, you can configure this as well. Then we can go to the next one. So if I make a mistake here, for instance, I do this one, I will actually immediately see this is the wrong answer because I ran it already. Again, you can just use some auto test settings to make sure this only runs at a certain moment, or you can hide stuff and all that stuff. This is sort of another example. Again, I can hand this in. It will grade it, and then I can see the code, and I can see my submission, and now I cannot change it anymore. That's sort of the student view. We're trying to make this really simple. Again, of course, we're going to keep working on this, adding new question types, but let's take a look at the authoring view. Before we do that, I saw a quick question, and that's, can I import current Canvas quizzes into this new quiz? So that's an important distinction. Like this is still a Canvas assignment. So Canvas also has quizzes. Those are different. Unfortunately, we cannot integrate with those quizzes. So this is an assignment that can contain multiple questions. Call it a quiz. But that's a good question. Let's leave the student view and go into the authoring view then. Again, I can go into a new tab and sort of open this on a full screen. So let's take a look at this Python example first. Of course, I can just go through the assignment here, and I can see what the students filled in. This student didn't do anything, and I can take a look at that. But let's take a look at how this works. So the cool thing about these quizzes is that it's fully integrated within Autotest. So there's actually no additional settings you have to do within your assignment. It's all within Autotest. So this also makes it quite easy to start implementing this into your courses, especially if you have assignments where students are just filling in one question through the editor. Then this is pretty easy to do. So what you will see is once this feature is released, which I'll get back to in a second, there is a new block here that's called quiz, and then there's a new block coding question and a new block multiple choice question. And they're all the way at the bottom here. So what you can see here is for this assignment, we have a quiz that's called list, and this will create that special file in the editor that contains questions. And then if I uncollapse this, you can see we actually connect to a rubric in this case, so theory. And then within theory, we have multiple questions that we fill in. So this is how you can make your quiz graded by just connecting it to a rubric. And then it will work like any other code-grade Autotest assignment. Here you can see we have a multiple choice question. We have a question statement. This is markdown, so you can do whatever you want in here to make it to add formatting. Then you add all of your answers and you select which answer is correct. So that's really quite easy. And then finally, you can give it a name. And what you can see here around these multiple choice blocks, I have added a hide config block, which means that students are not able to see the configuration, and the configuration is basically what the correct answer is. So that's an important one to add. But for instance, if I don't want students to be able to run this in the editor, I can simply wrap this in a run only in block. And then just set submission. So then only when they actually hand something in, this will run. They can still fill it in through the editor, but it won't run in the editor. Everything that's wrapped inside this. So this is probably a configuration that you often want to use, where you have a run only in block, then hide it, and then your multiple choice questions. Then for the coding questions, those are a bit more special because they're actually wrapper blocks. And the reason for this is as follows. If you see a coding question, you can see you can give a file name to the student that the students have to fill in. This will be sort of invisible to the student. They won't know they're filling in an answer.py. But the cool thing is that everything that's wrapped inside this block will be able to access an answer.py with the file name that the student, with the code that the student submitted. So that allows you to basically write your tests based on that. So you can see here we're actually importing that function from the answer, which is saved in answer.py. And then at the end here, this file will be deleted again. So you can do some cool things here. You can give a starter code template so students can start filling something in. And then you just add all of your tests in here like you do normally. Again, this makes it also pretty easy. So if you have those really simple assignments where students are just filling in one question, you can simply wrap your entire Autotest in a quiz and a coding question block, and then just move everything in here, and you're done. And then just make sure to set the file name to something that is the extension of your language and what file they were using. And then you can just give your question in here. So that makes it really easy to start using this interface into your assignments and then also add new things to this. Let's see. So this is sort of an example of how it works. So let's actually try and set something up from scratch, maybe the Java example, and sort of see what kind of steps we have to take there. So again, I can go back in here. In this case, I'll just quickly create a Java world number 2, and then add a code create assignment, select, and then I'll save and publish this. And then let's open this in a new tab to have a bit more space. And then to set up this assignment, I'm going to go to the Manage Assignment page. I do like using this simplified submission mode. This basically means that students are launched into the code editor by default. And to do that, I'll only make sure they can submit through the editor, and then I'll enable this. And now students will be brought directly to the editor. Because I'm using the coding quizzes, I actually don't have to set a template here. The template will be automatically, basically that file will be automatically generated by Autotest, so I don't have to do anything. And I can go to Autotest straight away and set up this assignment. So to do that, what I will do is create a new quiz. I'll call this answers. And then I'll add in a coding question, and I'll make this hello.java. And then we'll give a question like finish the program below. Good, great. Code. Then we can give it a template. So let's make sure students don't have to fill in like the class. And then let me see. Mistakes. I lost my tab, sorry. And then and then again, as now everything that's within this hello.java will exist. So what I can actually do is I have to compile this. So for that, I will add a script step. You will notice that we don't have a Java compile block just yet. But what you can do is there's this hidden CG command. And if you type CG Java compile and then hello.java, this will actually compile it for you. And it will also write those syntax errors to the editor itself. So I'll make this compile. I'll actually install Java in the setup to the newest version. And then finally, let's add an IO test in here, full match, and we expect hello code rate. The output and open Java. And then this should work, but let's give it a name. Question 1, coding question 1. As you can see now, there's no rubric here, so this is not graded yet. So if I want to make this graded, I can actually connect a new rubric, add these tests in there, and then I can create like a new rubric category that's coding question 1, and we'll do fail, and then 100 points per pass. Once I'm done with this, I can build this and launch this to my students. What you will notice is that if you press build, you will have to upload a test submission always. So currently, this won't automatically generate a test submission for you just yet. But what I can also do is if I actually create really quick a hello.java file with the solution in it. So if I upload a hello.java file, What CodeGrade will do is once it has installed the newest version of Java, which should be really fast. While we're waiting for this, a question, any plans to expand question types to include short answer or essay questions? So we definitely have plans to expand this further. The first thing we'll add is sort of a select all that applies question type. So with checkboxes instead of radio buttons. Short answer text or essay questions, that's a little bit more difficult because how are you going to auto grade those? But I guess you could manually grade it. Technically, the coding question is just an editor, so you could technically do this already if you want to work around it. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about for us. While we run this, you can actually see that if we hand in actually an hello.java, you see we get a message that CodeGrade did not overwrite this file with the answer given in the quiz, and it will actually just run correctly. So the cool thing is that if you do sort of change over your assignments, you could still allow people to sort of hand in like a hello.java as well. So if you want to use upload files still, and it will actually recognize it and you can still run the tests. I can publish this to my students, and now it's live. If I actually want to sort of fill it in correctly, I can go into this test student submission. I can press edit here, and it will actually automatically generate this file for me. And then I can just copy paste this over and then remove this file and then hand this in. And then I have created sort of my test submission that actually uses the quiz feature. Finally, what I can do here is add a multiple choice to this. So let's also do that. Maybe a question. What is the print to standard out in Java? And then we print line. We can print, and then we can add some others, and then this will be the correct one, and then we can add like multiple choice question 1. And finally, if we would do this on with a run if block or run only in block, and won't run this in the editor, and then also let's hide the configuration. Then this will only run after you press the hand in button. If you want to use this in a more summative way, what you could now do is just set like a submission limit to 1, for instance. And then students in the editor can run as much as they want. So for the coding question, they can try as much as they want. But then for the multiple choice one, they have to hand in to see the result. So if we quickly go to the student view for this, you can see how that works. So here now, if I do this, for instance, I make a mistake and then I run this. You can see that the multiple choice question won't run. I won't get any results yet. Only the coding question will run. And you can see we get a mistake here, so we can actually start using the auto grader here to print line. And then maybe we forget the semicolon, we run it again, we sort of get those compiler errors. And then we fix that, and then we run it one final time to check it. And then we'll go ahead and hand in. You will, if you set a submission limit, you always will get a confirm on this that says you have 1 submission left out of 1. Are you sure you want to submit? And then I can say, no, I'm not sure. I want to change stuff. But if I'm actually sure, now I've used up my submission limit, and now we'll actually see the result here automatically, immediately. So that's a way sort of how you can work with this as well. You can give like maybe a couple submissions. And then you can let them try again and all that stuff. that's sort of the whole feature. So it's pretty easy to implement within your sort of Autotest environment. We're going to expand on this, of course, and sort of add new blocks to this. Well, let's actually go back to the slides for a little bit to talk about the release of this feature. Right. So the release, it's available now. So we just switched it on. And you can learn more about quizzes on our blog as well. So there should be blog posts, and this video will be posted there as well. If you want us to help you integrate this into your course, you can always reach out to us at support@codecrate.com, and we can sort of help you create these quizzes into your course. So let's go into some questions. Question from Michael. What if you don't want the results shown immediately until after the assignment deadline? So for that, let me actually share my code grade again. For that, we have the height block. So if I go back to this assignment, what I could do is I can wrap another like height block in here and then add height result before deadline. So now if I do this, then the result will always be hidden, but after the deadline, it will become available automatically. Question from Thilo, can multiple MCQ contribute add up to a single rubric category? Yes, so every question, this is like any other test, basically in Autotest, is worth 1 point, or you can use the weight block to make it worth more points. And then if you connect this to a rubric, you can connect as many as you want, and it works like any other test. So that's actually what we did in this one. In our experience, the best workflow is every coding question you probably want to wrap in a single rubric category, because you probably have multiple tests. So that allows you to control this a bit easier. But multiple choice questions are probably easiest in one rubric category. So you can see here we have like a theory rubric category that should have 3 points. Let's check that. It does. And this is a continuous category. So if we have 2 questions correct, we get 2 out of 3 points. So this is probably the sort of the easiest way to do this. And so all of your multiple choice, you can connect it to one rubric category, and then your coding questions you can connect to another. If let's say you have a coding question here, then you want to have one multiple choice question, and then you want to have like another one like later. So let's say like here, you can always just connect it to the same rubric category again, and that this will just work. So we see that some questions fill in the theory rubric here, and then there's another question that further fills in the theory rubric. So this will all just works. Question, it looks like blocks could be nested or not used at the top level. I guess that doesn't make sense, and they should only be used at the top level. So that's for the quiz block itself. You could nest them. I'm not sure what will happen. Thomas is here. He's laughing. What will happen?
So yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, they could be nested. At the moment, we're not really sure yet what's like that will be in the future. For coding questions, it's definitely not recommended because basically, if you nest them, the questions will appear in both blocks, which will mean that you could, like, if you have like 2 quizzes with the same theory questions, you could do it that way. However, what is also supported, what is a more useful thing, is that if you have the same quiz block twice with the same name, it will become one quiz. So let's say you do a quiz and then you want to like do some setup or in between, that will all be merged into one for the student. So that could be useful. However, you can also just put it right in the middle of the quiz and you achieve the same thing.
So again, with Autotest, like everything is, we don't really disallow stuff. So be careful with those kind of things, like don't nest stuff necessarily, but it will all still work. You might just get something weird, but you'll see that once you build, basically. Another question, do you have plans for a no going back option? So they do one question, submit, and move on to the next question and cannot come back to it. So it becomes sort of immutable, I guess, is your question. I think that's a great idea. It would be really cool. So again, sort of with all the features we develop, we put this out there, then we want to sort of get the feedback from you. What are you using this for? And then we can sort of create additional stuff based on that. So for instance, for the multiple choice stuff, what we're already thinking about is like randomizing and all that stuff, which is super useful. But this also sounds like something really cool that you should block them. How that exactly would work, I'm not sure, but it's definitely something we take into account. Any other questions? Right. Well, so the feature is live now, so you can actually start playing around with it in your courses. Again, you can reach out to us at support@codegrid.com and we can help you set stuff up. Let me go back to that screen. And we're happy to help you sort of integrate these into your course and sort of think along with you to how to do that effectively. Just let us know and we'll help you. And then this video will also become live on our blog and we'll send it afterwards as well if you want to sort of a refresher on how it works exactly. And then finally, we'll have like a help center article coming as well. Then I want to thank everyone for joining today. It's a bit quicker than normal, but I'm glad you all could make it. And then we look forward to sort of releasing our next features. Right.
Thanks, bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.